Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are finally reviewing the fairly new Tier 10 Premium American Battleship, the Rhode Island. She will be finally be coming out for re-release, I guess you can call it, on July 3rd as part of the Independence Day event. So after being first introduced in the sequential bundles, or actually the random bundles, in the US CV event when the support CVs were coming out, she disappeared after that, but she's finally returning to the game. And I unintentionally acquired her during that event. I've been sitting on her for some time. Haven't done a proper review video on her yet because, well, it'd be pointless because you couldn't acquire her until, well, tomorrow, right? So, let's take a look at the Rhode Island and talk about, well, how she is. And this is a ship that I've actually played quite a bit, and I'm actually able to get a video out before her release, which is very odd. But anyway, massive shout out to the channel's Patreons. I'm not a CC, so I don't get any of these ships for free. These guys make this ship review and all ship reviews possible on this channel. So if you wish to be oh so generous, there's a link to the Patreon in the description down below. It is the best place to support the channel, besides, of course, just watching the streams and videos. But the Rhode Island, this is a pretty interesting ship. It's essentially a Super Florida, right? Florida has the same get-up, the 12 14-inch guns in the 3-turret configuration. And what's really funny, if you go back and watch my Florida review, I even say, like, hey, I think, this Florida would be an excellent, like, high-tier American, large cruiser, basically, a la the Alaska or something. And here it is, but it's still in the Battleship slot, right? So you still get put in the Battleship matchmaking and all that jazz. So let's go ahead and take a look at her, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? First off, with her camo and her economy. This is her premium camo, believe it or not. It's just gray with, well, I think actually no rust. I was going to say slightly less rust, but no, she doesn't have any rust on her at all. So this is like fresh out of the shipyard gray. That's what we get here for her premium camo, which is kind of sad, Woe to the art department. Man, I miss when we got some, nice historical looking camos. Her alternative scheme looks like that, so you can make her dark blue or gray. I mean, of course, it doesn't really matter because the premium camo doesn't do anything. You could, of course, easily slap on any of the other ones, right? But anyway, those are actually the permanent ones. But here you go. I got a bagillion of these bad boys, right? So you can easily slap any of those on and, be fine. But that is her premium camo that does come with her. As far as her economy goes, she is a Tier 10 special ship because there's no Tier 10 premium ship, so she doesn't get the baked-in premium economy, which does get a bonus package, which gives her a 50% buff to her credits, a 100% buff to her various XPs. This has been the bonuses I have been running on her up until this point. Alright, so talking about her armor, so she is more of a battle cruiser than a battleship, so you get 27mm bow and 27mm stern plating, 27mm stern deck, 27mm bow deck, 38mm mid deck, and for her armor belt, you get 38mm plating over it with the upper belt until you get to the torpedo protection where it's 32. And then her citadel is, well, right there. Pretty much right at the waterline, so it's not easy to get at first glance, but of course when the ship's maneuvering and turning and, rolling and stuff, you can get at it. It is covered up by the torpedo protection, so you do have quite a bit of spaced armor effect going on right there, but with, of course, a 27mm bow and stern and how thinly plated most of the ship is, you're still going to be eating damage, left, right, and center when you're getting shot because, again, of the thin plating. But that's, of course, why you keep moving. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get there when we get there. Survivability, she has 74,100 hit points, so very, very low for a tier 10 battleship, right? That's like, what, 20,000 below, the lower end of tier 10 battleship HP, so you're on the low side. Thin armor, low HP, again, very much more of a battle cruiser than anything. 26% torpedo damage reduction. For guns, you do get, again, 12 of the American 14-inch guns. They have a 22-second base reload time with a 180 time of 36 seconds, maximum dispersion of 225 meters base, and a maximum range of 21 kilometers. Her HE does a maximum alpha rating of 5,000, 31% fire chance per shell, 59 millimeters of armor penetration, and those come out the tubes at 861 meters a second. And her AP, which is not the Mark 8 Super Heavy AP, has a maximum damage of 9,500, and those come out the tubes at 823 meters a second. So unlike the normal Americans, Mark 8 Super Heavy AP that you get with American battleships, this one is not that. So you don't get any of the benefits of the Mark 8 Super Heavy shell, like, the increased alpha and all that jazz, but the shells do actually travel at, like, a normal velocity. So they don't take, 2 or 3 business days to get to the target, which is very nice indeed. Again, you don't get the other benefits that the Mark 8 Super Heavy AP gets, but they're still AP shells, and they do still do things, right? Alright, secondary guns. You get 20 of the American 127mm 5-inch secondary guns. They have a 4-second reload time, maximum range base 7.5 kilometers, maximum damage of 1,800 and a 5% fire chance, 21 millimeters a pin, and those shells come out the tubes at 792 meters a second. Again, the usual American, improved secondary guns. You can build those things for secondaries. It does work. Again, we'll get there when we get there. You do get 2 charges of the, usual American ASW airstrike, so woo. A rating is 90. You get 40 of the single-mounted 20 millimeter Oerlikons, 16 of the dual-mounted 76 millimeter Mark 33 guns, and then the 25-inch secondary guns are dual purpose for continuous damage rating of 466 and a damage of 1680 by the flak burst and 35% sector reinforcement, a range of 5.8 kilometers. Maneuverability, max speed without the speed flag is 33 knots, so just base, she's pretty fast. Turning circle radius of 890 meters, so a sub 1,000 meter turning circle radius, which isn't something the American tech line has seen since, well, the Iowa, right? Well, actually since the North Carolina, right? Rotor shift time 12.1 seconds. Concealment is 15.2 kilometers base. For her box of gimmicks, get your choice of radar or plane if you are special. Then you get, of course, the engine boost, a 15% buff to your maximum speed for 180 seconds, and then a 90-second cooldown time. You get repair party that regens 370 HP per second. It's active for 28 seconds, has an improved cooldown time of 40 seconds. And then you get the damage con, which is the good old American damage con that runs for 20 seconds. So for those 20 seconds, no fires or floods will be set on you, and it cools down in 80 seconds. So you get the standard American battleship damage con, and then you get the improved cooldown time on the repair RT. All right, so that is the Rhode Island base. So let's go ahead and put a commander build and module build on her, so she will no longer be base. I'll meet you guys right back here. Alright, for my module build, I went with main armaments mod 1. This reduces the chance of our main battery guns being knocked out, and again, that's where most of our damage is going to be coming from, so we want to keep those in the fight. It reduces the chance of the main battery guns being knocked out by 20%, increases the survivability of the main battery guns by 50%, and reduces their repair time by another 20%. Then, of course, damage con mod 1, because, well, fires suck. We don't like fires burning on our ship and taking away our HP, so we want to reduce the chance of that happening as much as possible. And since we are a battleship, since we are the Rhode Island, with lots of thin armor, we need to reduce every single way that we can possibly do so, the chance of us taking damage, so this does that, by reducing the chance of us catching a fire by 5% and the chance of us catching a flood by 3%. We then take Artillery Apply Room Mod 1. This is an American battleship, so we cannot take the Aiming Systems Mod 1 that is normally found in slot number 3. We take Artillery Apply Room Mod 1 instead because, well, unless you're doing a secondary build, which, yes, you can do, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. Take this instead because, I mean, like, everything else is kind of, I guess you could take the rotation mod if you really want to get the guns rotating, but I mean, range is range, right? So this increases the main battery firing range by 16%, the secondary battery firing range by 5%, and reduces the dispersion of the secondary guns by another 5% as well. Alright, then Damage Con Mod 2, because fires still suck, and this reduces their burn time by 15%, and same for flooding. So again, that's the less time the fires are burning, the less damage they're doing. Same with the flood, right? Alright, and then Concealment System Mod 1, this reduces our ship's detectability range, English Sea Lord, by 10%, so a stealthier ship is easier to disengage and also easier to sneak up into sneaky situations. And then, of course, take the American Plotting Room Mod 2 mod. Even if you are doing a secondary build, I would still take this, because this reduces the dispersion of your main battery guns by 11%. That is very good, you know. Less dispersion in your main battery guns, more shells hit the target, more damage you are doing. For the Commander build, I put Halsey on here. He's my boy. Taking preventive maintenance, this reduces the chance of our modules being incapacitated by 30% and increases the survivability of the secondary and AA mounts by 15%. Because, again, we want to keep the ship moving, we want to keep everything going, we want to reduce the chance of our main guns getting knocked out. That's why you take this skill. Turret rotation, this is a very quick ship, so we want to grease the gears to make sure that the turrets can keep up with the ship as we maneuver. This increases the turret rotation speed by 25%. This is a special skill for Halsey, of course, so you know other commanders you won't get it as big of a buff, but I would still 100% take it nonetheless. Adrenaline rush, because, well, again, if you are going to take damage, get something out of it, fellas. This decreases our reload time by 0.2% for every 1% of HP loss. It does add up, and you will be getting a very quick reload time with the Rhode Island. Alright, second third 3-point skill. This is usually the last skill I take, by the way, fellas. Basis of survivability, 15% buff to the restoration time of our modules, and another 15% buff to the extinguishing time and recovery time from flooding. So again, the less time you're on fire, the less time you're flooding, the less damage you are taking. Alright, and then for our 4-point skills, Emergency Repair Expert, this gives you a additional charge of your heal and a 10% buff to the runtime of your heal, which is literally more HP, and then another 10% buff to the runtime of the damage con. Again, with the American damage con, that's on the 2 seconds that you cannot be set on fire and you cannot take any instances of flooding. So, yeah, big ups there. Then, of course, Concealment Expert for another 10% buff to our concealment, so a very stealthy ship at this point. And then Fire Prevention, because again, say it with me, fellas, fires suck. This reduces the chance of us catching on fire by 10% and reduces the maximum number of fires on the ship from 4 to 3. If you've never seen 4 fires on a ship, my god, you are just literally melting away at that point. So this eliminates the chance of that happening. So what does that do to the ship, I hear you asking? Well, for the guns now have a maximum dispersion of 225 meters, but we're at 24.4 kilometers now, so longer range. That's why the dispersion didn't really change all that much, but the guns, you know, at the same base range are more accurate now by an 11% factor. That should be it for the artillery. For the maneuverability, we are going 34.7 knots now with the speed flag, and concealment is down to 12.3 kilometers. That is downright stealthy. For the modules now, with the flag and the skill, repair party now runs for 30.8 seconds. The damage con now runs for 22 seconds. So, yes, indeed. Oh, and radar runs, I don't think we did anything with radar. I think maybe the 40 seconds for the, I believe I have, is that with the module on? For some reason, I thought I put the radar module on. That it's just 40 seconds. It's just a long run time. 9 kilometer, 40-second radar. I should have mentioned that earlier. But yeah, that is the ship now. I'm going to go ahead and take it into battle and meet you guys there with a voiceover review. Alright, fellas, so the Rhode Island, she is a lot of fun, although I don't know who I made mad at Wargaming. this morning because my matchmaking was just absolutely abysmal in most cases. Extremely, extremely hard losses or just absolute walkover wins. So, yeah, that happened. But I had a couple of good matches. This one match where we just kind of went full force and had some good moments, and it's what we're starting off with. But the second match you see is the more traditional Rhode Island gameplay style. But anyway, speaking of playing the ship, she is a battleship that's not really meant to be played like a battleship, or even can be played like a battleship. You can't really tank in it because, one, you don't have the HP, two, you don't have the armor, right? You have a big old honking nose that pretty much every tier 9 and 10 and tier 8 battleship that you can see can go right through it, so you can't really, sit, bow in, angled in, and be bouncing shells like you can in some other battleships. If you want to try and tank in it, you really need to try and goad people. Well, you need to try to goad people anyway into shooting your side where you have your actual armor at, and that way you'll bounce most of the shells. But as is with battleship shells, some are going to go a little squirrely, they're going to hit something that they can pin, right? So there's very few ships that you can see, battleships at least, where you can actually, just tank their shells and bounce them and not really worry about, getting pinned. That's not really how the Rhode Island's meant to be played. Besides, like the Mecklenburg and the Illinois battleships like that have, the 305s, or like in the Illinois case, the Des Moines 8-inch guns, right? Those guys, yeah, you can battle tank, but again, the vast majority of battleships you're going to see, they can just go right through your nose. So obviously that means you don't want to get shot, or get shot as little as possible, right? So you want to stay on the move and really, again, play it, like I mentioned in port, like a very large cruiser. Stay on the move, use your speed, use your agility. If you stop and try to tank, you are going to get absolutely melted. So it's like a shark. You can't ever stop moving, right? If you play it like that, it's a very, very fun ship. And again, I play it like I do a lot of the other large cruisers. So what I'll typically do is, for the first however long of the match, the whole, sit back and try to snipe each other phase last, I'll typically sit back around like 18, 17-ish kilometers and just sling HE, because the guns, even with the module, the American aiming plotting room mod 2 mod, they are a little scattergunny, which means that, like, at range you'll typically, hit the target, right? But they're not accurate enough to where you can reliably sling AP at the target and, get consistent good damage with it. So I'll just use HE for, the beginning phase of the match, if you will. And then once things start to get a little bit closer, I'll then go ahead and swap on over to AP, from like 15-ish kilometers in, or even if I'm at longer ranges, but maybe, there's a GK or some of the higher tier American ships, or whatever battleship that I'm firing at that maybe has a big superstructure, then I'll swap to the AP, because the AP with 12, 14-inch guns against tier 10 battleship superstructure, you can get some really good pins out of that superstructure, in the like 8, 9, 10, 12,000 damage range. So I'll use AP on those guys, but in most cases I'll stick to the HE. And then again, once things get a little bit closer, load the AP and go for the broadside shots, the superstructure shots, or so forth and so on. Shoot things where you normally shoot things with your AP. And these 14-inch guns, if you build into them with the accuracy mod and such, they are very, very potent once you get to that mid-range range. And it's a lot of fun because you're flying around in this battleship with the speed boost that once you get the speed boost going, it really feels like a large heavy cruiser at that point. But you still do have, more tankiness than a lot of those large cruisers, so you can be a little more aggressive with it in those cases. The other thing is that you can't actually do a secondary build on the ship, and it can work. Would I recommend that? If you want to have fun, if you want to go full W, go for it, Chief. It's your ship. Build it how you want. It is a build that can work. It's just that, keep in mind, you don't have battleship armor. You don't have tier 10 battleship HP, right? And you are going to get melted down a lot faster than you normally would, right? So you're trading what little survivability you can have by building into it, all for the ability to have your secondary guns doing their thing. Again, if you want to use your Rhode Island for that, you want to use its speed, you want to use its agility to get within secondary range and let your secondaries chew on stuff, go for it. It can do it. The main battery gun build, though, I have had a lot more success with that. And keep in mind, too, by building into it, you still do get a little bit of a buff to your secondary guns because you take the artillery platinum mod, one mod, which gives you, a little bit of a buff to the range and to the reload time. I'm sorry, into the accuracy of the secondary guns. You can throw the secondary flag on there as well to get them out a little bit more. So there is that, but the main battery gun build for me has been working out a lot better just because of the nature of tier 10 games. They tend to stick at longer ranges more. And even when you are in those matches where it's just a walkover or something, you can still do a pretty good chunk of damage in the Rhode Island, like you'll be seeing in the second match that is going to be shown to you guys. So there is that. Now, that's a good plus for the Rhode Island because there's so many battleships now, so many, not just battleships, but other ships in general, that they get released. They really only have like one good build, right? Where the Rhode Island has two, and you can even do a little bit of a hybrid build in between. Maybe go a little bit into the survivability, but also dump a little, a couple of points in the secondaries. You can definitely do that, and I think it will work just fine again because this isn't a ship that's going to really be in like anything competitive, right? Because it doesn't have the armor, it doesn't have the HP, it doesn't have the ability to overmatch armor at all with her main battery guns, at tier 10. So yeah, you're not really going to be taking this to like clan battles, maybe ranked if you feel a little adventurous, right? But there are better tier 10 battleships for ranked, right? So why not put some fun builds on it and just run with it, right? But again, just keep in mind that it's not a battleship, right? It's a large cruiser disguised as a battleship, right? So if you keep that in mind and play it like that, it is a very, very good ship. It's once you get used to the guns and the velocities, it's a really, really good damage dealer, in my humble opinion. It's great, especially if you do have, Halsey, because of the amount of damage you can dish out with 12, 14-inch guns, right? That's 12, 14-inch HE shells or 12, 14-inch AP shells going out every 22 seconds. So if you have Halsey and you get Confederate, which isn't overly hard to do, granted, I didn't do it this morning because the matches didn't really last long enough for that to happen, but then you're really, really getting some nice reload times on your Rhode Island with Halsey's skill being popped. And with Adrenaline Rush, too, again, the way this ship eats damage, you're going to have some very fast reloads very quickly. Like, I'm talking like 18, 19 seconds, right? And that's just insane to have 12, 14-inch guns going off that fast. And while 14-inch guns are still small by tier 10 standards, it's still a big shell, right? Like, it does some damage. It hurts to be shot by, and you have 12 of them, right? So when you do catch battleship broadsides and you get your guns off and most of them connect, you're doing like, I was chunking tier 10 battleships for like 20k a salvo without citadeling them, right? Just by pinning their upper belt armor because, again, it's 12, 14-inch guns. So, it seems small, but they still hurt, right? We should be used to this concept by now. We have so many tier 10 battleships that have smaller caliber guns, but in high numbers, and they still hurt to get shot by, right? So this is a ship that's like, if you like the Georgia play style, where, it's fast, you have the speed boost, and you can run at the targets if you want, it's very similar to that. Because just like with Rhode Island, Georgia can very much go into the main battery guns. You can build into them and have some very accurate 18-inch guns on your Georgia. Now, granted, of course, with the Georgia, you get that, bit of overmatching and stuff because you have the 18-inch guns, the 457mm 18-inch guns that can overmatch 30mm of armor. But Rhode Island, you're kind of side grading that to go at it from more of an HE or AP approach, just through, pinning cruisers or burning down battleships with your HE. So it's very similar playstyle because just like the Rhode Island, the Georgia, you can't sit there and really battle tank the Georgia because even though she does have 32mm plating, her geometry is just a little wonky. So you'll still be eating like 11k to like her face somehow, right, if you aren't angled just perfectly. So it's kind of more of the same there. Again, not exactly the same, but it's more of that, I have a speed boost, I'm going to use it, I'm going to run around at mid-range, I'm going to burn things down with my HE, and then I'm going to blast things with my AP. And against other cruisers too, like 14-inch AP, that hurts. By tier 10 standards, a lot of tier 10 cruisers, they're well armored enough to where 14-inch will easily armor their armor, right? Because they're used to seeing 17-inch, 18-inch guns, and with those guns, you'll overmatch them. But with the 14-inch guns of the Rhode Island, you tend to pin them more than overmatch them. So that is absolutely a plus there, in my opinion. So overall, the Rhode Island, would I recommend it? Absolutely. How's it coming out for the 4th of July event? I'm not sure. I believe she is being sold directly for the 4th of July event. Let me double check that real quick before I tell y'all. Yeah, she's going to be available in the Armory for doubloons, alright? So, she's going to be available for doubloons. She's a tier 10 ship. She is going to cost quite a bit of cashola because tier 10 ships like 120, 130 US. So, it's going to be quite a hefty bit of doubloons. But, if you like fun, if you like playing a battleship more like a cruiser, if you want a supercharged Florida man, sure, absolutely go for it, in my humble opinion. But again, just know that it's a cruiser, not a battleship, right? So overall, as far as a numerical rating goes, I give the Rhode Island an 8 out of 10. The pluses, of course, being, well, her 14-inch guns, 12 14-inch guns at tier 10 with a lovely reload. Again, with that high of a number of guns, you're going to be setting fires, you're going to be getting good pins. As long as, you're shooting at things correctly, right? Using your HE on angled ships, using your AP on ships that are slipping up and showing you a little bit too much ankle, or using it the chunk superstructure, you're going to do just fine in the damage department. You can build into it with the main battery guns or the secondary guns, so again, you have build choices. You get that lovely speed boost and that radar. That radar is great for dealing with destroyers and smoke. You can run at them with your speed boost, pop your radar, then, turn the tables on those DDs that are camping in smoke, or use it to see what's on the other side of an island before you go ahead and rush around it. You get the improved cooldown time on the heal that really helps you get through a lot of the damage you're going to be taking with your thinner armor and lower HP. You get the improved American damage con, so that's lovely for those 22 seconds. If you're running the flag, you can't get set on fire or catch any more instances of flooding while you got that going. And again, she's just very maneuverable and quick. Downsides are that her guns tend to be, I don't know what it is with them, the dispersion pattern, sometimes, every battleship has this where you aim perfectly and you just bracket the ship, right? I found that happening quite a bit with the Florida. I'm not sure if RNG just hated me when I was playing this ship for the past, couple of months that she's been out in this early access phase, if you want to call it that. But it just seems that it happens more often with the Rhode Island than with other battleships. And of course, she doesn't get a whole lot of overmatching abilities at tier 10 with her 14-inch guns. The lower HP, well, very low HP by tier 10 battleship standards, and of course super thin armor leads to her eating a lot of damage. But again, you can get over that by using her speed and maneuverability to her advantage. So again, overall, very good ship. If you got the money to burn, I would say it is worth it. Obviously, don't try to get it if you can't afford it, right? If you can pick it up, absolutely pick it up. We don't know if she'll be staying in the Armory for dubs after the event ends. I'm not sure. They didn't really say. So if she's going to stick around, you can use the coupon on her. But again, we don't know that for sure. Wargaming did not clarify that one way or another. So guys, let me know what you guys think about the Rhode Island if you're planning on picking her up in the Independence Day event, which should be starting tomorrow. Hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week, and hope to catch you guys in the next one.